Hello, I'm Natalie Davis Avila, and this presentation is for EDAM 5320 Principalship. In this presentation, I will be discussing the Transformational Leadership Framework and how it connects to Texas Principal Standard 1, Instructional Leadership, and Standard 4, School Culture. One of the biggest ideas that stood out to me from this chapter is that school improvement happens in stages. Schools cannot skip foundational practices and immediately expect higher level success. The framework explains that sustainable improvement takes time, collaboration, and intentional leadership. The chapter states that schools struggle when leaders jump ahead to higher order practices before foundational stage practices have been established. I think this is important because many schools want quick improvement, but without strong systems in place, change is difficult to sustain. The Transformational Leadership Framework is organized into three stages of school development. Stage 1 focuses on foundational practices that help jumpstart improvement. Stage 2 focuses on addressing the needs of different groups of students and strengthening systems already in place. Step 3 focuses on reviewing and maintaining the higher order practices set in place by the previous stages. Another important point from the chapter is that every school is different and must adapt the framework to meet the needs of the campus. The framework is not designed to be a cookie-cutter framework. Instead, it should provide guidance based on the individual needs of the school. To better explain the connection between the framework and the Texas Principal Standards, I will use data-driven teaching practices as an example throughout each stage. I chose this example because data-driven instruction strongly connects to both instructional leadership and school culture. First, this example connects directly to Standard 1 instructional leadership. Standard 1 focuses on ensuring every student receives high-quality instruction. Effective principals use data, classroom observations, and feedback to improve instruction and student achievement. One way this connects to the transformational leadership framework is through the development of instructional systems over time. Schools cannot effectively use advanced intervention systems if teachers are not first comfortable analyzing student data or using common assessments consistently. For example, with data-driven instruction, principals may organize data meetings, conduct walkthroughs, and provide teachers with feedback on instructional practices. Teachers then use Teachers then use assessment results to adjust instruction and support student learning. This also connects to the indicators in Standard 1, including rigorous curriculum, effective instructional practices, and data-driven interventions to maximize learning for all students. The chapter also discusses how principals and schools both play important roles in the improvement process. In addition to instructional leadership, data-driven instruction also connects to Standard 4 school culture. For data-driven practices to be successful, schools need collaboration, trust, communication, and shared expectations. Teachers need to feel supported while working together to improve student achievement. This connects to the indicators in Standard 4, such as creating a shared vision, establishing high expectations, involving families, and creating a safe and supportive environment. For example, teachers may collaborate in PLC meetings to discuss student growth, families may receive regular progress updates, and students may begin setting learning goals based on their own data. One quote from the chapter that stood out to me states that by getting results that are visible to both students and teachers, members of the school community will be inspired to keep striving to do better. I think this quote is important because positive results help build motivation and strengthen school culture. Another major component of the transformational leadership framework is the difference between principal actions and school actions. Principal actions are the steps principals take to drive consistent implementation of change within the school. Examples include organized data meetings, conducting walkthroughs, setting expectations, and providing feedback to teachers. School actions are the observable behaviors of staff and students. Examples include teachers consistently using data, students participating in interventions, and staff collaborating to improve instruction. The framework emphasizes that both principal actions and school actions are necessary for lasting improvement. In Stage 1, the focus is on building foundational systems. Using the data-driven instruction example, the principal may begin introducing common assessments and data meetings for teachers. At this stage, teachers are just beginning to consistently analyze student performance and use data to guide instruction. The goal in Stage 1 is not perfection, but creating systems needed to begin improvement. Once those foundational systems are established, schools can move into Stage 2. In Stage 2, schools begin addressing the needs of different student groups. Using data-driven instruction, principals may begin creating intervention groups based on student needs, while teachers use differentiated instruction more consistently. At this stage, the systems become stronger and more organized, and the school begins responding more effectively to student data. Finally, Stage 3 focuses on higher order practices found in consistently high-performing schools. At this point, data-driven instruction becomes embedded into the culture of the school. Teachers independently analyze student growth, collaborate consistently, and use interventions proactively. Students may also begin taking more ownership of their learning and their progress. The school is no longer just reacting to problems, but continuously improving systems and instruction. One important point from the chapter is that improvement is not always immediate. Sometimes schools experience challenges before they begin seeing positive results. One example discussed in the chapter was a principal whose suspension rate increased from 5% to 25% during the first year. However, by the fifth year, suspensions dropped to 16%. I think this example is important because it shows that implementing stronger expectations and accountability may initially reveal more issues within the school, and the principal must remain consistent and encourage staff and students to continue on with the changes. Transformational leadership requires patience, persistence, and consistency even during difficult transitions. Overall, the transformational leadership framework provides a realistic guide for school improvement. The framework demonstrates that successful schools build strong foundations before moving into higher level practices. Successful schools also focus on long-term success rather than short fixes. It also highlights how instructional leadership and school culture work together to improve student achievement. One of the biggest takeaways for me was understanding that meaningful and lasting change takes time, consistency, and intentional leadership practices. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation. Again, this is for EDAM 5320, Principalship, and this is the presentation in Module 1. Thank you.